Welcome to Talent Unfiltered. Located at the intersection of innovation and all things talent. Talent Unfiltered is presented by HireWorks. HireWorks. Talent forward. Now, here is your host, Ron Gauthier.
It is Monday, April 6th, 2020. Welcome to Talent Unfiltered, presented by HireWorks. I am your host, Ron Gauthier, and you are looking at Times Square in New York City. Now, for those of you who have been there, you know just how odd an image this is. As unemployment numbers skyrocket and uncertainty is the mood for the day, we hope that Talent Unfiltered can bring a bit of relief and positivity for a week. Now, coming up in just a while, Enrique Rubio, the founder of the global community and movement HackingHR, will join us. And if you are looking for a positive person to connect with, you have come to the right place. Enrique is definitely that. Now, please remember, you can connect with the show on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Snapchat. The show is available on Spotify, on Buzzsprout, and on SoundCloud. And there's also a video version, which many of you are catching right now on YouTube. You can email the show if you'd like to get in touch at showinfo@talentunfiltered.com. All of our social media platforms and where you can find the show are in the comments section below, and we hope that you will connect with us soon. And if you like what we do, please like, subscribe, share, and turn on the notification buttons on whatever platform you are catching us on. Now, before we get started and before we bring Enrique in, I want to take a second to talk to you about something that a friend of mine is working on. Good buddy of mine named Andy Angelos, who was one of the founders of a company here in Chicago called Social Katie, has put together a new company called Tap Click Talk, and they are a really interesting organization that does neat work around digital marketing and around data. Andy has put together and helped design a new tool called the Bounce Back. And it's designed to help small and medium-sized businesses cut through the noise and get to some of the offers that the SBA and the federal government has as part of the economic response to the COVID-19 outbreak. Now, not only do they have information, but they also have team members ready to help you if you need it. And the site goes live, I believe, on Tuesday. They will be there and ready to help. Just as the coronavirus outbreak is evolving and moving very quickly, so are they. So please understand, it may not be perfect the day you get there, but it will continue to evolve and get better and get better and get better over time. And if you're feeling overwhelmed about what to do with your business, this is one of those things where you can spend some time getting to resources that may actually help you keep people on the payroll and stem some of the damage to the economy that I think we are all concerned about. Now, lastly, tomorrow, my company will be announcing a fundraising campaign in conjunction with an organization called Global Giving. They are an international company focused on helping communities ravaged by this crisis, and they support them by getting them funding and tools that they need to find their way through. So stay tuned to my LinkedIn page for more information on how you can help. This is all, think of it this way. If 1 million people watched it and each donated $1, we could together make a real difference, and I hope that you will join us in helping those that need it. So without any further ado, uncertain times and anxiety call for compassion. They call for caring, and they call for strategies on how to succeed. Our next guest has all of that and will deliver to you in spades. He's Enrique Rubio, the founder of HackingHR, a global community of HR professionals who are focused on bringing us the best HR we have ever had. Hey, Enrique, thank you so much for taking time to join us today, man. How are things out in San Diego? Are you staying safe and everything okay?
Thank you so much, Ron. Yes, this is a very interesting time, and I think we're all going through this together. Some cities are getting hit harder than others, New York and San Francisco, LA, and of course cities in other parts of the world. But I can't complain. I'm fortunate, I'm lucky, I'm blessed that I'm better off than many people who are having a really hard time, both health wise and economically too. So I'm thankful for that.
Sure, and you hit it on the head. I mean, when I originally started this show, Enrique, the idea we called it Talent Unfiltered, right? It's really been given what's going on in our world right now. It hasn't been as focused on that as I would have liked. You and I work together in Hacking HR. I'm here in Chicago. You're the founder, and we're going to get into kind of the history of Hacking HR in a while, but I'm interested to know, um, I guess as we look forward here, kind of what your feelings are about COVID-19 and how are you seeing it affect people in their personal and professional lives? Because you have a gigantic network that is worldwide, and I'd love to get your take on what people are saying to you about how it's impacting their personal and professional lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to start off, I just gotta say that I personally I'm really concerned about what's happening, and it's not just when it comes to people's health and safety, and what's happening economically and financially in our country and in many other countries in the world.
Hmm.
Is that I don't even think that we have an idea of what the day after tomorrow will be looking like, right?
Hmm.
And it is not just saying, oh yes, well, we're going to bounce back from this and the economy will be great and blah blah blah. People are going through so much pain right now, and their well-being, their personal wellness, the anxiety, the stress, the people who are living by themselves, who are used to just being together with others when they go to work, and now they have to be just by themselves. So I think there are so many different angles that you can analyze this from, and
Hmm.
understand that it is a very, very complicated situation. Even if coronavirus ends by tomorrow, I don't think people will be totally okay, emotionally okay, the day, tomorrow or the day after coronavirus ends, because we have been through so much over the past 3 weeks. Never
Hmm.
in the history of humanity have we ever gone through so much change in such a short period of time. Never before. If you think about 9/11, this was a peak of a crisis, and it took some time for the US to get into war with Afghanistan and then Iraq in 2003. So these things took some time to
Hmm.
happen. But what we're going through right now, like the changes and the disruption of everything we were used to doing just 3 weeks ago, and changing all that in such a short period of time, it's just so complex, so mind blowing, so it generates a lot of anxiety,
Hmm.
as I mentioned before. So I am feeling that, and that's part of what I'm feeling from everybody that I'm speaking with. There are a lot of people that are very hopeful about the day after tomorrow, but we know that whenever we get out of this, yes, we will bounce back, and the expectation and the hope is that we do better. But this transition, these times that we're living in right now, they are very complex, right? And what I'm hoping is that we understand that many more people will need to get together in communities. I've always said this, right? I mean, 2 years and a half ago, when I started Hacking HR, I said the kind of problems that we are dealing with in the world today are just so complex that they won't be resolved by a single country or company or city and whatnot. And that's putting evidence today when we see the complexity of the coronavirus, and the fact that many countries are resolving this in an isolated way, instead of getting together somehow and trying to collaborate more, help each other out more. Even within the US now, governors are trying to scramble for resources, but they are also trying to see how can we
Yep.
collaborate so that we are not uh, uh, fighting for the
Sure.
same pocket of resources, right? So anyway, the point is that I think in my conversations with people, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of hope too. But I think we all know that the next few weeks will be very, very complicated for everybody.
It's so interesting because I think there's A lot of times in HR, and you and I have had these conversations before about the future of work, about what that looks like, about where this might actually go, right? And so often we are focused on trying to solve issues that separate us, that make us different, that make us different from our fellow team members, from our fellow cohorts. You know, we talk about diversity and inclusion, and I don't think that magically those things are going to go away. My hope is that people see this as an opportunity to change the way they perceive the world, because right now it doesn't matter. Coronavirus doesn't care whether you're black, white, rich, poor, purple, green, you love a boy, you love a girl. It doesn't matter. What it does care about is that you're a human, and it cares about getting to you, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully these are the kinds of things that begin to bring people a little closer together. I've been talking about the isolation issue with a lot of different people, and what that looks like and what it means. And, you know, myself, I'm at home. I am a Gen Xer, right? And quite honestly, there's a lot of memes going around right now about how Gen Xers are actually built for this, because we've been socially isolating since the late 80s, right? I mean, and it's kind of true, because I don't feel personally the pressure of the isolation. Now, I do have family in around me, so that's probably part of it. But I worry so much about people so focused on the bounce back that they forget to take care of what's going on today.
Yes.
They forget to take care of their own mental health, because you're right, some of the recovery is already baked in.
Yeah.
Last week, we got a jobs report on, I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday of last week, that said 6.6 million people filed for unemployment. You talked about change.
Yeah.
People, we have shed 10 million jobs in 10 days.
In 2 weeks, yeah.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And the projections that I saw at the end of last week say that we don't come out of this completely until 2022 or 2023. Even if we get a bounce, it takes time to get people back to work, right? So that brings me to my next question. You know, you're talking to a lot of people out there, experts in different fields. And by the way, congrats on all the things you do on LinkedIn, all the LinkedIn lives. The content that you put up and the people that you talk to are phenomenal, and I think that they give people a lot of hope. That's something I said in my intro, was you're a very hopeful guy, and a very positive guy, and I'm hoping that we can take some of that going forward. But I want to talk specifically about what you're hearing from your network. And how companies are addressing this, whether they've furloughed workers, whether they've actually let people go. What are the things that you're hearing from them about their response to this particular situation?
Yeah. I want to comment a couple of things about that, but I want to go back to something that you said before, and I don't want to miss the opportunity to say that, you know, especially here in our country, in the United States, you know, we're very divided, right? In you know, Republicans and Democrats, and you know, my country, my birth country, Venezuela, went through the same thing. You know, the country very divided, supporting, you know, the government and those of us who didn't. And in 1999, in December of 1999, we had it started raining, and it didn't stop raining for like about 2 or 3 weeks. And there was a tragedy in most cities in the country, but especially in the coastal cities. It is estimated that more than 100,000 people died, even though the government said something else. But people who support the government and people who didn't support the government, they all got together to help in some way. You would see them, you know, buying food for others, you know, lending their cars to, you know, to transport people from one location to another. So it was this level of solidarity that only happened that one time, and it's never happened ever again in our country.
Right.
And this is not the first time it happens in humanity, that people get together, you know, through solidarity to help each other out when we are going through, you know, like extreme hardship, like what's happening right now. And what I'm seeing today in America, but also in many other countries in the world, is more an increased level of solidarity, collaboration, sharing, and people helping each other out and whatnot. And what I'm hoping is that we can make this a sustainable thing in time. right? That it's not just that because we are suffering through the coronavirus, that's what we're getting together across the aisles and thinking, well, you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. Well, now, you know what? I don't care right now because I have to make sure that I can help you out. And I hope you want to make sure that you can help me out as well, because we're all in this together. This virus does not distinguish your political beliefs or your religious beliefs or your gender, your sexual orientation, or any of those things. And so I think that's perhaps one of the most important silver linings of the tragedy that we're going through right now. And I am hoping that we really embrace this idea of how important it is for us to get together. In spite of all the things that separate us, there will always be more things that are common interest.
For sure.
Why not focus on those things instead of focusing on the things that keep us apart, right? And we're going to go through more hardship. This is just the beginning of what of the implications of the coronavirus. Even if we flatten the curve, the economic long-term impact of what's going on will take a long time to recover, and we will still need more of each other. So we're going to have to leave behind our assumptions about how other people should be, about how other people should behave. And if you are not in my religion, or if you're not the color of my skin, or if you're not in my political party, we will have to stop caring about that and stop caring more about the human that is behind those things that sort of have kept us apart for a long time. So that's something that I didn't want to miss from your.
No, and it's a great point, because you talked about something. Here's the eternal pessimist in me, right? That's why I like talking to you, because you're a nice balance for me. But the things that I worry about are the kinds of partisan bickering that we just saw, trying to get funding out the door. I get it that you're trying to take care of constituents. And I don't care whether it's right or left. Right now, I just want a cohesive government that acts as one unit, that can push forward and get things for communities that really need it. I don't want to see pork barrel, add-ins to bills. I don't want to see any of that. And I think that's true whether you're left, right, down the middle. I think that's the case. Anyway, back to the question. So talk to me about the kinds of responses that you're seeing or hearing about from companies around the world.
Absolutely. Well, I'm seeing a lot of creative things going on out there. I know that there are companies furloughing people, there are companies laying off people, but I am seeing also an incredible number of companies taking action across the board to try to make it as least painful as possible for their people. Let me give you one example of what I just read yesterday from Gravity Payments and Dan Price, who is, if somebody here is not following Dan Price and what they're doing with Gravity Payments, you should. This is a guy who leads with the heart and with empathy and love. And I told him that everybody across the board in the company took a 20% pay cut to avoid increasing prices for their customers. So that's what they're doing. There are other companies that are taking pay cuts, their staff, to avoid laying off more people than they should be laying off. I'm seeing some CEOs saying, I am, giving up my salary and my compensation for this year, because they are in the financial position to be able to do so, of course. Sure. But they are giving that up because they say, if I give this up, I'm going to be able to keep 100 people employed through this year. I am seeing companies becoming way more creative, even when they go through the hardship of having to lay people off or furlough them. They are being creative in the way they continue to provide meaningful opportunities for people who stay with them. And I was just looking at a pizza place. This is just like a very mundane example, but it's an example of what I'm talking about when I talk about creativity.
I do like pizza, though. So
I love pizza too. So this a pizza place now, they sell pizza. That's what they do. But Now what they're doing is they are selling kits for people to do like creative pizzas at home. So they didn't do this before. And they said, you know what? People are going to be spending way more time at home now. And why not providing something fun to do while they have their families around? Mm-hmm. So they're doing something that is creative. I'm seeing companies taking care of their people, of their mental health, of their well-being, of their wellness in ways that I had never seen before. I am seeing yoga companies doing online yoga, gyms, doing online sessions for workouts and whatnot. I'm a runner. I'm a competitive runner, and I just saw a big running brand. They are doing a virtual race.
How are they? Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do that.
That's kind of cool.
I'm not signing up for. I don't know how they're going to do it, but that's what they're doing.
It's on a treadmill.
So probably. So lot of creativity in there. I saw. So I'm seeing a lot of those kind of things all over the place, which is a testament of human ingenuity and creativity when we go through times like this, right? I mean,
sure.
So that's a little bit of what I'm seeing, and as opposed to 2008, when the world went through the financial crisis, a lot of companies, I don't think they cared that much about people back then. Not that they didn't care at all. Let me just, make sure that I reframe that. Not that they didn't care at all, but I think the way they approached the situation was just like, well, for us to be able to survive, we just got to lay off people, right? And, let's lay everybody off, or let's just furlough them or do whatever we need to do. What I'm seeing now is many companies thinking, what can we do to avoid creating pain to our people? What is it even possible? And I'm seeing some companies, trying to do everything in the playbook in the most creative way before laying people off or before furloughing people. So
sure.
So this new trend that I'm seeing right now, which is something which is not really new, is something that you and I and many others have been talking about for years, is let's put the humans first in the center of all that we do.
Sure. And it's interesting because, I run a business during the day, right? I don't always just get to sit down and talk to interesting people like yourself, but, we're looking for ways to refocus our business, and how do we take care of not only the human side of the people in our organization, but the human side of our clients, right? We're a consulting firm.
Yeah.
And so we are trying to find ways to deliver solutions that still have value and impact, but also take into account where people's heads are right now. Because the reality is, people are it's kind of a slow burn, right? People are just now beginning to wake up to the idea that this is really, really, really serious. You hear somebody talking the other day about, I think it was Dr. Tony Fauci in the federal government, was talking about, 100,000 plus people could potentially, die from this, right? We haven't seen anything like that where it affected. You brought up the example of 9/11 before. I lived here in Chicago when that happened, and I can tell you, even then, you knew it was part of your country, but it felt isolated from where you were. This is everywhere. This is everybody, every town, and it just it feels very, very different. I hope that companies do what you say and think about the personal aspect of this. I would say that the caveat to that is that this is a different experience than 2008. In 2008, many companies got caught with their hands in the cookie jar, and they got their hands slapped, right? And so there was a very much us and them kind of thing. This isn't, and I think that there was some backlash by, however you look at the politics, the Elizabeth Warrens, the Bernie Sanders were really screaming about what was going on, and it's become an entire campaign for Bernie. If you look at it, but I guess the point is, this is different in that this was us deciding to shut the economy down.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a different.
But you also have examples that I know. In this country and also in Latin America, it's happening very often, where some business leaders are forcing their people to come to work. I have because of HackingHR, we have dozens of chapters out there, so I talk to all this community, and I think it was in Mexico or Argentina maybe, where somebody told me people are coughing when they come to the office, and their business leaders are like, you still have to come to the office. So they are doing the wrong thing. So while I agree with what you're saying, for a business leader, it still takes, the empathy and the love and the understanding, the human understanding to say, you know what, we don't need to come to the office during this time. You can work from home. But there are some that are very, very, I don't know. They are living in another time or in another dimension, and for
Yep.
them it is like it's not that
Yeah.
important if you get coronavirus or if you die, right?
Right.
For them, what matters is how much money we're going to be making at the end of this year. And this is what I think too. I think most people, and I thank the media for this because they are doing an amazing job to keep our politicians accountable and companies accountable. We have to praise them for what they're doing. I think that after we get out of this tragedy that we're going through right now, there's going to be a list of things that we're going to be looking at. And we're going to be looking at the people who went very far, the extra mile, not the extra mile, the extra 100 miles to make sure that people were safe, sane, healthy, and okay during this crisis. But we also have to look at the companies and the politicians and the people who did the wrong thing, those who downplayed the tragedy that we're going through right now, and those who continue to do it, those companies who are taking financial advantage of what's happening right now, vis-a-vis those that know that they are making a sacrifice to help others. Let me give you one example of this thinking. I recently saw a brewery company. Now they are making hand sanitizer.
Yep.
I saw clothing company making masks. I'm seeing GM partnering with a ventilator company to make ventilators. Whatever the government says, they are going the extra mile because they feel that their calling is up to the challenges of this time, and they have to fulfill that calling. So what I do agree that we decided to shut down the economy, but not every business leader, like we're seeing with politicians, they have not decided necessarily to follow up through those, through that sort of recommendation, because for them it is not that important to keep people safe as to keep their beaches open or their bars open, right?
No.
So
I agree 100%. It's interesting to me, though, if you think about this, the companies that are going to be the most impacted by this are those smaller organizations. We see it in restaurants, in the hospitality industry, right? And I often wonder, I heard a government official, I believe it was Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, I'm not sure, say that they felt these businesses would come back, that these restaurant and hospitality industries would come back, but that some of the smaller ones may be under different ownership. Well, that's
not going to be back.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's great, except that, what happened to the person or the group or the small restaurant company that fell apart because of this. And I'm working on a guest right now to be able to come in from one of the larger consulting firms to be able to talk about how to navigate this if you are a small business, if you are in the restaurant and hospitality industry, because that happens to be her sector, which is what brings me to my next question. You've been doing this for a long time. You have been championing these causes prior to being prior to founding HackingHR. And I think that there are a lot of people inside and outside of your network who would be interested, and our networks who would be interested in hearing your thoughts on how HR professionals can help their companies navigate these challenges, right? Because I do think if you're an HR professional and you're still working and you haven't been furloughed, this is one of those times where you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I plan for what comes after this? And I'd love to get your take on that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think the very first thing and the most important thing of all that we can do at this time is lead with love and empathy and understanding. What that means is that we know that some people will be furloughed. We know that some people will be laid off, and sometimes there won't be a way around it. I know for a restaurant business who just lost 85% of their income, for them it is just impossible to keep everybody on board. They may get creative to continue getting that 15% left that they have in there, but they will have to furlough or lay off people. Now, from the HR perspective, leading with love does not mean that you won't have to make hard decisions, because hard decisions will be made through this crisis and any other crisis. But it is coming from a place of love and understanding, when you can have a conversation with people and explain to them what is going on with transparency, with a high work ethics, and try to offer them as much help as you can do. Let me give you a couple of examples of that. There are companies that are laying people off right now because of what they're going through, but they decided to bring outplacement firms to help them out, to try to replace those people in another companies, try to help them, refine their resumes and, polish their interviewing skills, and help them with some programs and learning courses and whatnot. So they are doing whatever they can do to help these people that they are sending back home. But I also saw companies where the HR department just sent them an email saying, "Hey, Ron, don't come to the office tomorrow. You're laid off. Thank you for your service." That is BS. That is the biggest BS that they can do. I don't know if I can say bad words in here, but I'm not saying it yet.
Say whatever you want to say, man.
It's
this
bullshit.
is one of those. Thank you.
It is bullshit, man. How is that even possible? That these people have to go back to their homes. Maybe they are the single breadwinner at home. Maybe they are single parents, and you are just sending them off like that. I mean, you are inhuman. You're a monster if you do that. So the very first thing that I will say to HR people is, you got to lead with love. It will require more work from you. That is for sure, because it is very easy to send out an email to everybody that you're laying off and taking 5 minutes to do that. Whereas having conversations with 100 people will take you hours. But you have to do what is right. And what is right today is leading with love. So that is one thing that I am hoping all HR professionals are taking into account, because they will be in that same very place. Very often HR is the last man standing in the ship, besides, of course, captain. They lay everybody off, and they lay themselves off. So they don't want to go through the painful experience of being treated, with such level of, I don't know, lack of empathy, if you will.
Sure.
So that's one thing. The second thing is that this is something that HR has not been so good at for a number of years, but I'm hoping we can bring that up. We have to get really creative. And I'm gonna tell you something. This is a time when you have to put all the ideas, as crazy as they sound, you have to put all the ideas on the table. And let me tell you some of those ideas. If you have to tell to your C-suite level, if you guys cut 50% of your compensation this year, we can keep 200 people on board for the next 6 months. We don't know what's going to happen for 6 months, but we can keep them on board for 6 months.
Sure.
If everybody in this company takes a 15% pay cut, we won't need to lay off 50% of our workforce, but only 10% of our workforce. So do those ideas sound crazy for some people? Yes, but this is a time when creativity, imagination, innovation, curiosity must be put on the table with all that you have in mind to find what works best for your organization. I'm not saying that these ideas will work. You may, like, for example, I've seen some companies, what they're doing is that they send their people home in 2 weeks periods. So Ron, you go home for 2 weeks. You, unfortunately, we won't be able to pay you for 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks, you're gonna come back and we're gonna send the people who stay here home for 2 weeks. So that way, at least you have something rather than zero, right? Plus, in reality, the unemployment benefits won't be enough for you. So maybe this is better than filing for unemployment benefits. So all I'm saying is that leading with love and being creative means putting all the ideas on the table, as crazy as they sound, to see what the best option is. I'm not prescribing any specific option or idea or solution, because this is extremely complex and all businesses are going through the pain in different levels, or because of their own realities. But I think this is a time when you put all those ideas on the table. And let me just say one more thing.
Sure.
You, as an HR professional, part of your responsibility will be to reach out to other HR professionals, especially in your industry. I don't care if you're going to reach out to an HR professional in a restaurant that is your competitor, or in a small business, consulting business that is your competitor. You got to reach out to them and ask them, hey guys, I'm sure that you're going through the same pain. What are you doing? Okay, this is what I'm doing. just learning from each other, because putting all the crazy ideas on the table means also bringing them from outside your organization, because you have to be as creative as you can during this time of a profound crisis.
Some days you're exactly the person I need to talk to, because you're a very, very positive dude. And I tend to be, I tend to be, and I don't mean that you're not this way, but I tend to operate as a business owner, I think, as a business leader, pretty pragmatically, right?
Yeah.
I look at things from the standpoint of how do I maintain as best I can? How do I help shepherd people who are part of our team through this particular crisis? And how do I help my leadership and our investors? How do I give them some confidence that there's going to be an end to this on the other side, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's an interesting point you bring up about sharing things, because I think so often as small business owners, we're afraid that this person is going to get our secret sauce.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're going to be able to do exactly what we can do. And how are we going to compete then? And in the reality in things, I think, is that there's only so many ways you can reinvent the wheel. Very few people come up with truly original things. There are some things out there that are innovations in terms of technology and how you can deliver things. But ultimately, the physical service that gets delivered, whether it's software or whether it's humans, ends up being very, very similar. Sometimes it's just, the function of all software is to remove friction, right? That's what we're trying to do. We only have a couple of minutes left here, so I want to talk, because we haven't talked about Hacking HR very much, and I want to make sure I'm a part of it, and I'm so grateful to be involved in it. And we have a great team here in Chicago.
Yeah.
I feel blessed to be a part of that community, and I am really grateful for getting to know you over the last year. I think that you are someone I enjoy watching and seeing what happens. So walk us through, this is really a two-part question to wrap things up. First of all, why did you found Hacking HR? And what role do you think organizations like Hacking HR can play in times of crisis like this?
I founded Hacking HR because I wanted to bring people together, HR people together on a table with people who worked in technology. That was my very first assumption. I want to bridge the worlds of technology and HR, and I want to put these worlds together, because these two things are very important. Technology and people are going to be the drivers of changing the world, as we go forward, right? And this was pre-coronavirus, by the way. So now things have changed a little bit for me. Mm-hmm. Or the way I see things in the world. Then Hacking HR evolved and became a community, not just events that we were doing to talk about technology, HR, and innovation, but it became a community, and that's what we're doing right now. So when I define Hacking HR right now, I define it as a global learning community of HR leaders and practitioners who come together to learn all things that are at the intersection of future of work, technology, organizations, people, innovation, and of course, the impact in HR. The purpose of Hacking HR, this may sound a little, big and sometimes even arrogant, right? But it's really what I have in mind. The purpose of Hacking HR is to create the best HR that has ever existed. But I'm gonna tell you why. I'm not just thinking that creating the best HR for the sake of creating the best HR is enough. When I say creating the best HR that has ever existed, it's because when we create better HR functions, we have better workplaces. And when we have better workplaces, we have better society. If that person in HR who sent out an email telling people you are furloughed or you are fired or you are laid off, if that person had been a little better in their HR role, maybe the suffering that he or she was causing to the people would have been way less than what it actually was. So creating the best HR that has ever existed is because we can create better workplaces and better societies. So that's what I'm doing with what I'm Hacking HR, and that's my vision, to create that better HR that has ever existed. I am one of the many players in a big ecosystem of people trying to do the same thing, even when they word their purpose in a different way. We all have we're all trying to converge towards the same long-term purpose. Now, how communities like Hacking HR or many other communities can operate in terms of crisis, I think it is by doing what we have been doing over the past, at least us, over the past couple of years. We are a bridge that connects people from all over the world. Whenever people ask me, what is your main role? I always say, I am a bridge builder. I build bridges across communities, across people from different regions. I connect people. And when I connect them, I encourage them to cross the bridge. It is up to them to cross the bridge, but I encourage them to cross the bridge, because it is only wrong when you are able to cross the bridge and say, I'm in Chicago, but I know people in Italy are suffering from this virus as well as we are, but we have an idea and maybe they don't have that idea, and I'm going to share it with them. And maybe they have an idea that I don't have and they share it with me. And now we have two ideas, or even more than two ideas. So that to me is the role that communities like HackingHR should play during this crisis. It is providing an opportunity for people to connect across the world, learn from each other, share, collaborate, suffer together, vent together, be vulnerable together. But that's sort of the ultimate goal of what I'm trying to do here. Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping communities like ours do in the long term.
It's I'm looking at you and you're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go this morning. And I know that you're a super early morning person.
Yes.
Because we are doing this early. I, on the other hand, am running, trying to catch up, because I am not a morning person by any stretch of the imagination, which is ironic that I would end up in corporate America, because that's not really the place.
But you're doing podcasts at your time. We started at 6 a.m. your time, 7 a.m.
Something like, but it's earlier for you, which is just for me, yeah. So, there are times when I wonder, and I want to just one more thing here before you go. There are times when I wonder how people with positive messages, people who lead with love and empathy in HR, can alter their language enough to show business leaders that is the way you need to go, and put it in terms that they understand. Because I think often there's a misconception, and you and I have talked about this before when we did a forum for the Hacking HR here in Chicago last year. We brought leaders from different areas, CEOs, CTOs, leaders from talent, leaders from HR, financial leaders together. And what you found through that conversation was that everybody was basically trying to do the right thing and think the right thing, but the language, the semantics of it were different. And I often wonder if you have one tip that you could leave with the viewers today. How would an HR professional how would an HR professional be able to communicate that idea to a business leader of leading with love and empathy, and vice versa? How would a business leader show that what I'm doing is in love and empathy? Because I think sometimes, if you think about it, there are two distinct camps. There are, at least that's the way it's been to this point. There are business people and there are HR people, right? And sometimes people think that those two things don't cross, and I'm not necessarily sure that that's the case. So if you could leave us with a little tip before we let you go, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. There's research that shows that people who speak more than one language are way better resolving complex problems, because their brains are more wired than the brains of those people who only speak one language. I speak Spanish and I speak English. Spanish is my native language. This is the same thing for HR. HR needs to speak several languages. And speaking several languages does not diminish the value of each of the individual languages. What it does is that it wires the brain and it wires their capacity to solve complex problems and to send messages in a much different way, or in a much better way, actually. And when I say languages in the corporate world, what I mean is HR needs to speak HR needs to speak technology, HR needs to speak financial, HR needs to speak strategy. When you in HR, you're able to speak all these languages, what is going on in your brain is an extra wiring of what it would have been if you only spoke one language. So it is like, when I speak to my mom, I don't speak to her in English because she does not speak English. She speaks Spanish. And I speak to her in Spanish because that's what she understands. So whenever you talk to somebody in finance, unless that person really understands the language of HR, you may need to speak in the language of finance. If you don't talk to somebody in technology, unless that person speaks the language of HR, you're going to need to speak the language of technology. So HR needs to become a multi-language, a speaker, so to speak, so that they can cater and transform their messages in such a way that speak to everybody in the organization. So they will have to learn some technology. They will have to learn some finance, basic stuff. I'm not asking them to become an accountant. I'm not asking them to become an artificial intelligence programmer, but I'm asking them to understand the basics so that they can have a conversation in the language that their counterpart speaks, because in that way you're going to be able to convey a message in a much powerful way. And that's what we're like in HR. In HR, for such a long period of time, people were just entrenched in speaking one language, and they felt proud of it, which is ridiculous. So now we have to feel proud of the fact that speaking more than one language in the corporate world has become more important than ever before. So that's my my advice.
And I think that that's great advice on both sides of that equation. Enrique, I know we have to cut it short here, or we have to cut it short. We talked for 40 minutes, but I know we have to wrap it up. So I just want to take a minute and thank you for taking time this morning to talk with us. And I hope that everyone out there who is watching this got a lot out of that. My friend, I will talk to you soon. You try to have a great rest of your week. Stay safe and stay healthy, okay?
You too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No problem. No problem. All right, everybody. That is Enrique Rubio, founder of HackingHR, joining us here on Talent Unfiltered. Okay, that's going to do it for us again today. We want to thank you for joining us and being a part of it. A big thanks to Enrique for bringing his message of positivity to the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Now, if you like what we did here today and you want to stay up to date, then like, subscribe, and share on your platform of choice. You can also connect with me or the show on social media, and that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, or you can just find me directly on LinkedIn. Join us next Monday, April 13th, for a new and exciting episode of Talent Unfiltered. Until then, peace.